I am very passionate about, changing the image of the continent, the existing negative narratives that were either deliberately created and they became mainstreamed and they became part of our day-to-day, pity patting and seeing ourselves like that, to saying there's actually things that are working that don't get mainstream attention. So
28th September 2024, and we have our very first guest for the podcast. We doesn't even have a name, but it's all right. It's the one and only Abaas.
thank you.
Abaas, thank you so much for joining us. I'd like you to tell our audience that is listening to us and may watch us, what is your full name? Where are you from?
Thank you so much, Jackie, for hosting me here. My name is Abaas Mpindi Apuuli.
Apuuli.
Kandi ya.
Akiki. Ndio kurungi. That's where my rhetorical stops on. Yes.
So the rhetorical side of me, I think, speaks to my mom. My mother was a Mtoro woman. My father was a Uganda man. So saying.
Kati wedirachi.
Nedira mamba.
It's almost like every Muganda yedira mamba. That is a story for another day. So Abaas, we're here today at the Gathering of Givers, and I would like you to tell our listeners, what is your first or earliest experience of generosity in your life?
My first experience of generosity is with my grandmother. So I think most people that know my story will get tired of my grandmother's story. For me, was the first idea of being a good human being. One, people talk about like an open door policy in an office.
Yes.
Like open door home.
Yeah.
She just say, let everyone in, because you don't know who those people will be in the future. So at first, this simplest form of generosity is you didn't have your lunch or breakfast alone. You're always like kids from the neighborhood, and she would just say, well, share your breakfast or share your lunch.
Yes.
Can be, quite uncomfortable when you are a young person. For me, that was the idea of sharing. Generosity for me, sharing, it's allowing another person to share space, to share food, to share, an object, to share time, and resources that other people may not have. Have to share privilege, to share access, anything really. And that for me is when I started to see it.
Wow. And to
like the age of 3 years onwards.
To your point about generosity is about sharing resources, we're here celebrating our generous spirit, and I'd love you to tell us why MCI so generously gave the gathering today a podcast van.
So Media Challenge Initiative, an organization that I run, is also born of generosity. We run because there are people out there who believe that journalism can make the world a better place and are willing to invest money without expecting money back, but impact. So if someone is willing to do that and create a dream like a media van, which was, donated to us by the Konrad Adenauer Stiftung. It's, I think, then not just prudent, but really just being humane enough to say, let's share that resource or that space with others. And this being, a gathering of generous human beings, there is no better place than this van to be. So
Amen.
That's why we're here.
Amen. And tell us some of the Okay, for people who don't know what MCI does, just tell us a brief about what you do. And thinking back in your work, are there stories of generosity that you've come about that you can share through the work of MCI?
So, Media Challenge Initiative is a youth-driven not-for-profit building the next generation of journalists. So, for the last 10 years, started as a student movement, just going around the universities to organize ourselves and create opportunities, internships for young journalists who would struggle. Over the years, I think our first act of generosity or act of kindness was the late Bbale Francis. So I had gone to a TV station to ask for an internship. The lady at the security had said that you need to know someone. So I said, I don't know anyone. And she said, well, you need to know someone, it will be easy for you. And I walked back to Umkat without that internship. When I said, how can we get more young people, more editors and so let's give birth to the first Bbale Francis news anchoring competition. So it was just a news anchoring competition. That old man and I said, hey, you've built a name, a brand. We have an idea to start a news anchoring competition in your name. I said, well, that's a privilege and honor. I'm happy you can use the name. It looks like you mean good, but don't expect money. Don't expect that I will be helping you to mobilize money. Say, well, that's it. We just need the name. And he gave us his name, but I said that was an act of kindness because it was a 50-year-old brand that he had built, and he was willing to risk it all with some students who were just starting. And he was showing up to the event, which was very, on my side, I would say, disorganized because we didn't have budgets. And he was willing to give a speech. And at the end of it all, when I was very stressed and near to saying, this is the end of me and events, he came and he patted on my shoulder and said, well done.
Wow.
Good job. It's meticulous.
Yes.
And that is how Media Challenge Initiative started.
Wow.
You've seen, donors, funders, government, non-government organizations, individuals, people, journalists, editors, managers, volunteer time, give us resources. And to build now a brand that you call Media Challenge Initiative.
Wow. What is some of the work that you guys do?
So we training young journalists. We run a fellowship program that helps a young journalist, to realize their goal, to realize why journalism, and why they want to stay in there, or why they don't.
Yes, also. And
then skill them for really to become job ready, future ready, and market ready. But also to say the job might not be your calling. It could be that you're a creator. So for those, after the training, it's a 6 months fellowship. Now we've added a newsroom concept to it, an apprenticeship of a sort. So they come to our media hub and work on their different stories. In that period, they have access to a mentor in the media industry, and then we begin to connect them to media industry jobs, internships. Then we have those who are saying, for us, we want to create something. Now we have an innovation space. So we incubate media startups that are
That's amazing.
Looking at coverage of areas that are underserved, undercovered. We have like people working in sign language, minority groups, the law, solution storytelling, podcasters. And so we've seen in the last, I think, when we started was always, I want a job.
Yes.
The last 3 years have been a new trajectory of no, we can't we don't fit in the traditional
ecosystem.
We want to disrupt and create
Yes.
So with that in mind, we've actually we're incubating I would say the first youth newsroom, which will focus on producing content about young people
by young people
and residing on social media platforms. So there will be different channels. So the challenge that I realize is that most of the media houses, the target is always young people are targeted with sports and entertainment. But they're young people in politics. With generosity.
In all kinds of things.
And you don't get to see those unless someone is really, really standing out and they get a profile. We're saying, you know what, there are all these channels where young people are actually consuming content where they should be seeing themselves more. And we have seen rise of content consumption on TikTok and all these platforms. And the content is not, it's laughable, it's it doesn't educate. So we're saying we could actually do delicious content, but also it's highly nutritious.
Well, I know you're not junk food. And as we end this, what is your dream? Again, we're here today celebrating young givers, celebrating our generous spirit. So there's what we're doing now, and there's also our hopes and aspirations for the future. So as a young person that has experienced generosity and that through their work is also extending generosity, what is your dream? Either for the media or for young people or for your country. Just what is your dream?
I am very passionate about, changing the image of the continent, the existing negative narratives that were either deliberately created and they became mainstreamed and they became part of our day-to-day, pity parting and seeing ourselves like that, to saying there's actually things that are working that don't get mainstream attention. So I always say that I want that people to wake up to notifications of good news.
Wow.
And that's sort of like can I have people waking up to say, oh wow, look at this guy in Chenjojo who is fixing ABC and or oh, I've just received a story from Karamoja about this kid who just created ABC. Or when I look at Jackie and getting all these people to enjoy walks and talk about life. There are all those pieces that you would see in other countries mainstreamed as part of their culture, as part of their ecosystem, as part of their goodness in those countries, but you don't see them spotlighting from our continent. So for me, the vision of media is, I'm not asking for just positive branding of the continent. I'm saying let's have the whole picture. That whole picture is that there's a lot of things that are not going great, which we can continue to hold ourselves accountable to fixing. But let's also show the people that are investing time and effort trying to fix those things. Because if we don't, then we create a hopeless
narrative.
But I was also sharing with people saying, if you've been running an organization for the last 12 years and your proposal still reads problem statements and you still use literally the same statistics that you used 10 years ago, and maybe you've added new ones, and you don't show any progress that you can say this is the progress we've made. Because if you say we've been feeding children for the last 10 years, there has to...
No, but see, there are many more Jackies that have been giving birth, right? So Oh, that's why anyway, but yeah, I understand what you mean.
Also that.
I understand what you mean. So there are many more hungry mouths to feed.
But there's also the idea of like there's progress that
yes.
we want to show, the statement of progress. While we continue, of course, use that to work on the new mouth.
But I love that. Working on our statements of progress. That is amazing. Abaas, thank you for joining us and for being our first guest today at the Gathering of Givers here at Ndere Center today, 28th September 2024. Thank you.